as an entrepreneur, it's funny because you need to listen to people, but you also need to not care about what they say, which sounds very counterintuitive when you first think about it, right? So, and the same happened with me. Like everyone around me had their own inputs. They're like, "Arey, your friend is working here. Arey, this friend is doing his PhD here. What are you doing? You're not studying also. You're not working also." So all these things, this is comes part and parcel as part of the journey, right?
No rain.
Folks, welcome to the Naren Agarwal show. Today's episode is going to be an insightful one by somebody I think who's young but very wise. He is a public speaker and has given TED Talks in Kolkata and has also been part of Josh Talks Bengali version. He is also a first generation entrepreneur and a dear friend of mine, welcoming Vaidurjo Mukherjee on live. Vaidu, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Naren. Thank you so much, firstly, for having me on your show. And secondly, which is more importantly, you got my name right. I think, yeah, this is like one of my pet peeves. Like, ever since everyone says it wrong, so it really sticks when someone gets it right. So, thank you for that. Thank you for having me on.
I took your help in that, but I'm glad I clarified. How do people usually say it and how is it supposed to be?
It's like the original Bengali pronunciation is Boidurjo, which has some story behind it, which most people will find boring who are not Bengali, so you won't get into that. But
Okay.
nowadays, I have become Chinese somewhat, and then people just shorten it to Baidu, and that has stuck with me throughout.
That's pretty fun. I call you Baidu too. I guess you're
Yeah,
okay with that.
yeah. I mean, China did, bring down the brand value a bit with all the Corona thing and the bad PR, but we are getting through it.
That's pretty funny. Bro, I want to talk to you about something and dig deep into it. I was listening to your Josh talk, and over there you said something interesting. You said you have a bachelor's in engineering and a master's in failure, and you're a first generation entrepreneur. So I want to start off with that right deep into it. Why did you say that? What do you mean by masters in failure, and what is the role of failure in your life?
Oh, that's a very good question, Naren. I think, most of us, at least when we are starting out in our journey, right, we are presented with this very biased picture of entrepreneurship. And it's not really anyone's fault for that. It's just how social media and everything is portrayed. You only get to see 1% of the top 1%. And our brain kind of normalizes it to be like, yeah, like we can aspire to be that. But like even shows like Silicon Valley, there's a lot of things that really glorify entrepreneurship. When people who are really on the other side of it, the people who are actually doing it, they know the struggle it is. I'm sure you do as well. So every day it's a struggle. And every day, like in some things you'll be successful, and some things you'll fail. That's that's how life works, so no one's going to argue with that. But I think the more important thing that to be an entrepreneur, you have to be really resilient, and you have to be okay with failing, because you have to understand that the odds are not stacked in your favor, right? Like in the long run, chances are you will fail. You are
Correct.
not right. So you really need to understand that, and you need to accept that, and then you need to move forward. Because if you come into entrepreneurship with first, if you just come into it with a load of expectations without actually going through what it is that you actually want out of it, I don't think that journey will end well for you or me or anyone, right? So it's very important to set expectations right. So I think that is why I kind of said that we have to be okay with the failures, and we have to learn how to master failures. Because at the as long as we learn something from the experience, that whatever we are doing, we have failed at. As long as we learn from that experience, that is actually success in disguise. Because the next time we'll be facing with that problem, we won't be doing the same silly thing that we did before, right? So I
That's
guess that
amazing.
is, yeah, that is kind of what I was going for with that statement. Yeah, pretty much it.
So when you say master failure, what are some things someone can do to master failure? Like what's one or two things that you have that's worked for you?
So I think the first thing is you have to detach yourself from your results. Okay, right? So whatever your job in anything is not to Like, see, it's kind of like, I think about it like this, and I think it's more internalized in today's culture that we don't really like the process because of how instant gratification works. We just want the result, and that's it. We don't like, we know there's a process, we know we have to go through it, but we still haven't accepted that fact. We just want the apple and you know.
Yeah. We don't
So
want to grow the tree. We want the apple straight away. Yeah.
you want the apple straight away. Give me that apple.
Yeah.
So I think to master failure, you have to really have a stoic outlook on life. I think that is very important to really be able to separate yourself from your circumstances, from your results, and understand that the only thing you can contribute is the amount of effort and the thought that you're putting into something, and that's it. That is all, and you should be proud of that. Like, whatever you're putting in, you should be proud of that, and that is all you can do. You shouldn't, if it fails, that's good, that was supposed to happen. If it
Huh.
succeeds, you're
Part of the plan.
super lucky, and you should go out and try to help as many people with that
Huh.
success as possible.
Correct. Correct. Here's a question of mine. Would you be comfortable sharing a couple of the failures that you've had and what you learned from it and how you overcame it? Since we're talking about failure right now, whether it's school, college, or after.
So I think my first tryst with failure started when I was in class 5 or something, and I failed in a subject. I think it was maths, and I felt so guilty afterwards that my I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone, and then I've never actually shared this story. So I thought, okay, this is the first time this is happening. This isn't supposed to happen. So I have to somehow get out of this predicament that I put myself in. So then there was another thing, the day of our results. Because I hadn't told them about the failure, I obviously thought that somehow they couldn't go to the results day, right? Because they would find out amongst all the parents, which wouldn't work out in
Yeah.
my favor.
Yeah.
So so because I hadn't told them, they had planned a trip. So I was like, okay, I'll just ignore all of that, to hell with the results. I'll just go on a trip, enjoy myself. So I went, and then we went. I forget now where I went, but I remember having a lot of fun, and I completely forgot about that. But then, like around 1 or 2 months down the line, I
Uh-huh.
had never gone to get my okay. Huh, in the another thing happened. I thought I will. This thought actually came to my mind. That since my parents can't go, I'll hire some actor to go to the school as my parents, and they'll get the report card, and
Correct.
whatever pocket money I had saved, I'll.
Correct.
But that never happened as I planned it. But anyway, so even I forgot about it after a while, right? And then like a couple of months down the line, there's a telephone call. Like back then, we still used to have landlines. This is when I was in class 5.
Yeah.
There was a call, and then my mom went to pick up the phone, and then I hear, like, she's usually like very cheerful, a very optimistic person. And then I saw her slowly breaking down step by step as that time it clicked, because it was always in the back of my mind, but uh, I never thought it would happen. Kind of like, that cognitive bias is
Correct.
there, that you
Correct.
think you'll
Correct.
get away with it.
Correct. Correct.
So, and then I saw her crying, and I felt so bad. And
And who called? What was the phone call about?
yeah,
Who
at
did?
this point I didn't know what the phone call was
Okay.
about,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I was assuming all of this, and then after the phone call, my assumptions proved correct. It was from the principal's office. She called mom, and he had the assistant, the principal assistant. She told mom, ki, what kind of parent are you? You don't even come to the take the result from for your child. It's been over 2 months, your child's result is sitting here. Do you even, all these things, nasty horrible things. And this was like, that truly broke me at that point, because I never thought.
You were young. You were in grade 5. Yeah.
I was in grade 5, and so uh, I don't remember exactly what I did, but I remember feeling incredibly guilty. And then I had read, we were reading about Gandhiji at that time. I think Gandhiji did some bad thing, like he ate meat or something, and then he wrote a long letter to his parents apologizing. So I did that after that. I wrote like a
Oh,
huge
that's
letter saying
so
how
cool.
sorry I was, and all and thankfully that got sorted. And from then I realized there's no running away from failures. A part of failure is
That's
to
deep.
accept it. Like
Wow.
you have
Because
to
you ran
accept it
away
and
from
you
the
have to
failure,
move
you were
on.
trying to hide it away, push it on the carpet. It came back and you know bit you even more. So that
Yeah,
was such a
exactly.
cool lesson that you learned at such a young age. Um, what's really beautiful is that you made a great story out of it, rather than take it the other way. I think that's really powerful. Yeah.
I think stories are a wonderful medium, right? Like I always I loved reading books as a kid. I still do, but now it's different kinds of books, more non-fiction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think stories resonate with, and I'm sure you would agree because you're also a natural storyteller from, the videos I have seen of yours. So because all of us connect with stories a lot more than just, gyan. I can everyone's out there giving gyan, so might as well
Yeah.
drop a couple of stories in there.
Love that. By the way, tell me a little more about what the thought process was in becoming a first generation entrepreneur. I think a lot of people don't understand what it means to be a first generation entrepreneur and how tough it could be mentally and how it feels to go outside that comfort zone. So could you tell me and take me through the thought process of becoming a first generation entrepreneur? What do the people say? What do the families say? How does it work?
So I don't think I ever set out, with the specific goal in mind to be an entrepreneur. Uh, it kind of happened with me like over a series of, I guess you could say, incidents. For example, when I was like, I think the first thing that happened with me is I loved reading books, right, when I was a kid. But my parents never gave me any money to buy books. So I had to figure out a way to get books because I like reading them. So then I I saw then one of my friends, and by the way, this is illegal, and what I did was wrong, so no one should do it. This is just a
Okay,
disclaimer out there.
good disclaimer. Yeah, yeah,
So one of my friends introduced me to torrents, right?
yeah,
That was, I think, torrent was just up and coming at the time. It had just, hit the niche mainstream, you can say.
yeah, yeah.
So, and all these people, and back then, computer games were a big thing in our school.
Right, right,
Yeah, so I did what any enterprising kid would do who wanted books. I saw what the best-selling games were. What I took feedback from all my classmates as to what they wanted to play. I I put my computer, and back then those were the days of dial-up. Okay, so like 14, 15 kbps was a lot. So I had to keep my computer on for like 4, 5 days at a stretch to like download one game, maybe. Like,
wow.
and that's so did that, and then I slowly I started giving the games to my friends, and then I took their feedback. They were like, bhai acha acha, and then other people also started copying me. So then I had to set myself apart. So then I started printing labels for CDs. I started getting better cases so that it looks better. So
Yeah.
all these small small
Wow.
things.
So you were downloading games on torrent, you were putting in a CDs, and you were selling it to your friends.
I mean, your words, not mine.
Yeah. Okay. 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 It's a long pause. Okay. Anyway, someone was doing that in your school as an entrepreneur, but that's pretty cool. That's very innovative. Okay. And
Yeah.
but you were below juvenile age, so I mean you were below adult age.
Thankfully, I was below adult age
Yeah.
because at one point, my friends, okay, let's go to my friend's business got so popular that he started giving classifieds ad on Telegraph. So you remember when Telegraph, there was a newspaper called T2, which started
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Telegraph at that time,
Correct. Correct. Correct.
like a small extra.
Correct.
And
Correct.
then when T2 first started to, build a good consumer base, they started giving classifieds ad, which for I think the first 2, 3 months of their launch was completely free. So you could put any
Oh.
classifiers ad on a newspaper with like 10 lakh circulation for free. So
Wow.
my friend, being the dumbass that he is, tells to 10 lakh people that he's doing games illegally. So then, he did manage to make some sales, but then it soon got like he realized that what he was doing was not legal. He got a call from the police.
Oh,
So
wow.
I
Yeah.
guess that was the end of that adventure. But but that gave me a taste for I started, you can call, getting resourceful. I learned that how much could be achieved and how I could get the things that I wanted for myself by being resourceful in these small
And
small
helping
ways.
others get
So
what they
that was
want.
kind of,
Yeah.
and exactly, and at the same time making sure that, because everybody, everybody has to win, right? It's you whenever, main thing about entrepreneurship is you are creating a win-win situation,
Right.
right? If it's a platform, it's a win-win-win situation. So you have to figure out where the value is in the supply chain where you can benefit all the parties involved.
I love that. I love that. Exactly. That's the number one thing that I really think a lot of people get convoluted, and people don't understand that you can only be a successful entrepreneur if you make others win at the same time you win as well. And that's I think that's a core principle in any kind of genuine entrepreneurship. Um, that's awesome. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I did a few things in between which weren't that major. But then again, another thing happened when I went to college. Okay. And then I went to college and I took electronics engineering, a subject which I didn't know a lot about, let's say. Okay.
Yeah.
And as most people know, like electronics, electrical, these are like some of the toughest courses in engineering, right?
Correct.
So, and I'm not that smart. So, in full disclosure, so we weren't completely compatible, let's say. So then, that being said, I flunked a subject, not
Okay.
one subject. I flunked some subjects. Okay,
Did
plural.
you tell your parents this time, or did you hide it from them? Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I told them I flunked one, but the truth was different. Okay,
Yeah.
now the issue with my college was कि whenever someone flunks, they have to do the entire, like, the subject that they flunked in, they have to do that entire subject again for 6 months. So they have to take the entire course again, and they have to pay the course fees extra for that subject, right?
Whoa.
So, and course fee for one subject was around 13-14K, which was a lot for someone who's just, traveling
Into
from,
college.
they're going
Correct.
to college in the middle of nowhere where he has never, like, I've never been outside Calcutta before that point, right? I was
Wow.
always born and brought up here. So then I went there and this started happening. I was like, no way I can tell mom and dad. Anyways,
Yeah.
whatever allowance I get,
Yeah.
that also will get cut off. So that's when I said, okay, how can I get myself out of this? I put myself in this predicament.
Yeah.
So what's the way out?
Wow.
So thankfully, I started looking around, and there was a guy in our college who was selling posters. So he used to, like, all these college kids used to buy posters from him, and he used to sell them really cheap. Like, he used to sell them maybe 60, $70 a poster. And the same posters, if you went to, a site like Flipkart or Snapdeal, you would get these at 199, 299. So that trick again triggered something. I was like, how is this guy able to get it for so cheap? And if he's selling it for this, how much is he getting it for?
Yeah.
Okay. So I started looking around. Now I had, obviously, another thing in entrepreneurship is you can't do anything without other people, right? You're trying to create an ecosystem, you're trying to create an environment. So me and my friends, we started searching, like, where can we get posters? Now, thankfully, just beside our college is, I think, Asia's second largest press. So even Harry Potter is printed there. Like, all the Southeast Asian region, Harry Potter is printed there. I
Oh,
visited that.
wow.
Like, it's so big, the factory. You have to literally drive cars in those factories. So,
Wow.
anyways, that's beside the point. So then me and my friend, we walked there, two little kids. And then we like, what is your, and then we negotiate poster prices with them. We see what other things they sell. They sell like, lanyards, stickers, all these different paper products they sell. And we were like, this is pretty cool because we were getting at that point, we were getting it at $20. And I had asked the senior guy. The senior guy said he was getting it at $30 and selling it at $60. So we managed to get it cheaper than him.
Wow.
Okay. So then we thought, okay, this is definitely something that can be done. So then we started doing posters at like $50. And then this went on for a while. But then we weren't really making any money, right? Like $30 a poster, and one person usually buys two, three, maybe four. Okay. And again, there aren't that many repeat customers because if you already have a poster full of walls, that's it. You don't
Yes.
really have, this patience use
Correct.
in college. So then I thought, okay, what are my other channels? So then I saw that I was just doing B2C. I'm selling directly to consumer. So what about B2B? Because every day in my college, there are over 100 clubs. Okay, in my college, because it was a university town, and there are like different colleges spread across the town, and all of them have different clubs and different
Clubs.
societies, and they
Correct.
all have consistent events throughout the semester. So I said, okay, what have I sold to them? Because not only will they buy a, like, larger
Bigger
quantity,
quantity, but also, yeah,
they'll
exactly. But
also
also
be
there's
repeat customers. And so I said, okay, so let's try it. So then I started reaching out, I started building relationships, and pretty soon we started doing it. And then it was going great. And then I thought, okay, what's the next step? Because again, the drawback of B2B is now I can't sell it for $50 anymore. If I'm selling it to them, I have to sell them 25, $30 max. So my
correct.
margins obviously go down, right? So even though I was selling a lot more, I wasn't making that much more. So I thought, okay, what is a product on which, I can really have some margin for myself?
Yeah.
So I tried to look at the same. So I said, I already have this customer base. I have these people who trust me, who buy from me. So what else can I sell them? So that's when I noticed club t-shirts. So all
Huh.
these people, they get club t-shirts every with their name printed on the back with designation. But I was like, thank God. So then we went. So we
Uh,
started searching again. Unfortunately, we weren't as lucky as last time. There were no t-shirt manufacturers nearby, but we managed to find someone in the next town,
ooh.
and we also managed to find someone in Madurai, in Chennai. So then we signed MOU with both of them. We negotiated the basic terms, and then we started. So again, the T-shirt is much more cutthroat, right? So if you just go to a club and tell them, "Hey, T-shirt," usually one or the other guy has already figured out this hack and they're doing it for the
Ah,
others. So
correct.
then what I did was I bundled all of this together. I said, for every fest you need all of this. To do one thing, you give me all of this. I'll get it done for you before the deadline, and you'll also give you your t-shirts along with this, and I'll design your t-shirts for free. So you have to make it so appealing that it
Yes.
seems really stupid for them to go elsewhere.
You made it a one-stop solution. So instead of going to 10 people for lanyard, posters, etc., you literally made it a one-stop solution, and that was the value that you were adding to them.
Exactly. That
Yeah.
was and after that we started like growing like crazy, and then by the time, like, I think a year from then, I started this in second year. By the end of my third year, I think we had over 60% of all the clubs in Manipal. Like we
Wow.
had who had at least purchased once from us. So,
Dude,
and
so literally again, failure led to success, right? You failed in a class, you thought I need to make money, I need to figure this out, to retake the courses, and then you went on to
exactly,
do this and became an entrepreneur.
exactly. So that's it's funny how life works sometimes, but like I said, like failures are just hidden opportunities that we haven't really figured out yet. So as long as we
I
learn from
love that.
them, it's all worthwhile in the end.
I love that. So after college, um, when you decided that you don't want to go for a job and you want to have your own path and career and start a business, or a couple businesses, what was that like? Because see, when you're in college and you're doing something, it's fine. But when you're outside college and don't have a job, other people start commenting, right? And there's a lot of
Absolutely.
pressure, and you feel pressured because while you're in college, you can do this simultaneously. But when you're outside college, you need a full-time gig, right? So what was that process like?
Yeah, so that process was by far much more challenging than the previous challenges, because again, like I said, as an entrepreneur, it's funny because you need to listen to people, but you also need to not care about what they say, which sounds very counterintuitive when you first think about it, right? So, and the same happened with me. Like everyone around me had their own inputs. They're like, "Arey, your friend is working here. Arey, your this friend is doing his PhD here. What are you doing? You're not studying also. You're not working also." So all these things, this is comes part and parcel as part of the journey, right? You have to
Correct.
accept it as it is. So it was definitely difficult, but I am very lucky that way that my parents supported me throughout. And although like at first obviously they weren't on board, because my entire family is a family like full of academics, doctors, engineers, like the the traditional top
Correct.
level people with like brains, and like they know
Correct.
their stuff. Whatever they're doing, they know their stuff,
Correct.
right? And so it was very difficult for them to accept at first. But then I think I talked to them, I made them understand, I made them say, see, this is something, like I'm not saying ki this is something that I'll be really good at, or I'll even make money, or anything will happen, but this is something that I want to do. So, and it's better that I try it now rather than not try it and then 10 years later try it with like a host of additional responsibilities and then forever regretting ki, what if I tried,
That is
right?
awesome. Yeah.
I think I mentioned in my talk also, like about Jeff Bezos's regret minimization, how he, you know,
Correct. So
left
tell
Wall
us
Street.
more about that. Yeah, Jeff Bezos' regret minimization. Walk us
Yes.
through that.
So Jeff Bezos was, I think he was working in Wall Street. I forget the name of the company, but he was a really top level executive. Like his boss loved him. He was one of the most highest paid executives at his company. And then one day suddenly he saw this number. I forget the person, but he saw this thing called the internet was rising at 4 digits, like I think 1300% or
Yeah.
1400% every
Correct.
year. And I think that number got him super excited. He was like, because previously he had missed out on the computer boom, which Microsoft and Apple took full advantage of. So he was always on the lookout, even though he was working. So this number stuck with him. He knew this internet thing, whatever it is, it's going to be big. And that's when he took this decision. I'll leave everything that I have, my job, my nice flat, all of this. I'll move across the country to a smaller place which I can afford with my savings, and then I'll start something from scratch. And then he made a list of I think 10 or 20 things that people in America brought. So dress, books, cosmetics, all of these. And then he started eliminating which one is easy to, like, which one is the easiest to ship and handle. So it was obviously books, right? Because it back then electronic media still hadn't taken over.
Correct.
So it was
Correct.
books. And sure enough, he went on to make, now he is worth, I think I have a status about this also on Facebook, where I think I made it like 4 or 5 years ago, where I said something like Amazon will be the biggest company and Jeff Bezos will be the richest person by 2025 or something like that. So
Wow.
it
That's already
came to,
happened.
it came to
Wow.
much earlier than I expected.
Wow.
But yeah, so that
So
his
what's the
regret.
thought process behind regret
Yeah, so
minimization?
regret minimization is, he said ki, if I know that this thing is growing at 1300% per year. Now, if I don't do anything about this right now, when I know this thing is going to be huge, if I just sit and still do my comfortable job, then when I'm 80, I'll forever regret this moment of my life where I didn't take the plunge when I knew that something was happening, regardless of whether I turn out to be, successful or failure at it. So he projected himself 80 years into the future, and he said, when I looked back on this, I knew I had to take this plunge, because if I didn't, I would forever regret it till the day I was 80. So that is how he, thought
That's
about the
amazing.
decision.
So we just
And
got to stretch ourselves and imagine us at the age of 80 and then see what actions doing right now would cause least amount of regret at the age of 80. And then we take those actions so that we
we
have the
take,
least amount of regret. Regret minimization. That's pretty cool, brother. Thanks for
yeah,
sharing that.
it's cheap phases. But I'm glad
But
you
yeah,
found value in it.
yeah.
He's one of my like role models. He has so many. He's an inspiration, bro. Even though you know, he's rough around the edges in some aspects, I'd say, but overall,
Yeah. For those who got it, you can have a laugh. For those who didn't, that's fine.
but yeah,
Yeah. One last question I have for you today is,
yeah.
so you talked about your journey, how you kind of stumbled upon entrepreneurship. We talked about failure. We talked about regret minimization and that you wanted to be an entrepreneur and you convinced your parents. Um, Last question is, why did you want to be an entrepreneur? What sparked within you? Why were you so convinced and why are you so convinced about entrepreneurship? What's the why?
Okay, so the why keeps changing for me as I realize, as I grow, the why kind of develops. But I guess at its very core, it's like at the very core, I want to help as many people as I want, because I want them to help me when I'm in trouble, which is a very selfish reason. But I want to help people before they help me, and I want to create something of value in every. So I'll give you an example. Wherever I go, like for example, in college also, I created two clubs. Like I had two passions. One was economics and finance, and one was watching anime. So manga, anime, all that. I was really into those two things. So, and I knew there were lots of people around me that were also similarly into those two things. And there were so many talented people, like people who invested in stocks, who made a living, who paid their tuition fee just by trading stocks. And there were amazingly talented artists who were just introverted, shy, and they never spoke. And but you opened their notebook and you could, visualize an entirely new world that they could create. But these people, they never had a voice. They were always, in the shadows. So then me along with my friends, we created these two communities called ESOM, the Economic Society of Manipal, and Mac Manga and Anime Club, literally so that these people, they could interact with people of the like mind, because by exchanging ideas, right, by having conversations like we are having right now, that is how we grow as people, and like that is how our perspective grows also. So I think that was my core why. Like I want to reach out and help as many people as I can in my own small way. Like I don't want them to be, like I don't want to like go and help them one by one, anything like that. I just want to be a small part
Yeah,
of their life where they can look at me and say, that dude, yeah, that's a good guy. That's all I want from
yeah.
people. He's a good guy.
That's amazing, man. You're definitely a good guy. Thanks for being part of the show. That was awesome.
Thanks for having.
Any final things that you want to say to anybody who's thinking about entrepreneurship, is doubting themselves, and wants that final motivation into how they can step into becoming an entrepreneur and start a journey?
Uh, I have no, see, I am very against giving advice to people, because a lot of time I took advice from people, it backfired, right? Like
Yeah,
pursuing engineering, a lot of things. So I'm not really into advice, but I really, if you want to be an entrepreneur, like Naren asked me a really interesting question as to figure out what your why is. Why do you want to do it? And if it is as something as superficial as money, then maybe you're not ready yet, or you have to dig deeper to find out your real why. And exercise, I think I learned this from, I think, Tony Robbins. I'm not exactly sure. He said, for example, let's say we are having a conversation, right? And Naren, what is something that you always wanted to do?
something that I always wanted to do. I wanted to always visit Maldives.
So why do you want to visit Maldives?
Oh, I think it's an amazing sight to be in the blue waters and be able to scuba dive and be in nature, because that's something I've been uh, not so frequent with, being part of a city in India and growing up here. That's something that is not there and I've always seen on TV.
Okay, so why do you think it is so important for you to, be in the nature? What is your reason behind that? Is it just the nature or is there something else you're trying to
Yeah.
say?
I think there's something deep within the human spirit to discover new places and be in places that you've never been before. I think it's part of our DNA. We've been hunters and gatherers for millions of years, and it's another spirit in us that wants to discover more and see more of the world and people. So I think that's the deep core that really excites me, to go and see a new place and experience a part of Earth, which is also part of life.
That's great.
Yeah.
So basically what I'm doing is I'm seeing the your what your intentions
Layers.
are layer by layer.
Yeah.
So the usual process, what Tony Robbins said, was you have to ask at least 7 times. Like there are 7 layers before you get to the core layer where you find out the ekdam core reason of why
Correct.
someone wants to do something. So
Correct.
I didn't want to, like, we'll have a separate conversation where we'll go to that layer. I didn't want
Correct.
to tease it to the audience
Yeah.
right now. But yeah, so something like this, ask yourself why,
Cool.
and then once you have the answer, ask yourself why you want to do that. And then keep
Yeah.
repeating this 7 times, and then till at the end, you have no other why for that. That is, you just want to do it. It's just you want to do it. So once you reach that point, I think you've figured out your why. And once you have figured out your
Correct.
why, it's, it doesn't get easy, but it does make it
Bring
worthwhile.
more clarity. Yeah.
A lot more clarity.
Yeah. By the way, what a nice conversation, man. That was awesome. I learned some things and so many cool stories you had to share. So thanks for doing that. I appreciate you. You took us through a journey of your childhood resourcefulness, learning from failure, entrepreneurship, and a cool technique, the 7 why analysis, and also regret minimization. So thanks so much for that, brother.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is like, I can definitely say this is one of the most interesting conversations I've had in a long, long time. And the best part about it is, like, this was just free flow, right? Like, the stories I shared today, I've never said these stories. Like, I've said some of these stories in part, but I've never said it like I said today in like complete details. And
Correct.
it came out so well. Like we exchanged so many ideas, we learned so many things from each other, and thank you so much once
Exactly.
again.
I think, and that's one of the big reasons I try to keep this show like unscripted and really raw, so that it brings out the organic flavor in the conversation and brings out spontaneity. So I
And
appreciate you appreciating that.
yeah, you're definitely an amazing interviewer, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, many thanks, brother. Cheers. Good day to you, brother.
Good day, namaste. This is how we
Namaste.
should greet during Corona. Let's make namaste go global.
The best way to do it, brother.
The best way to do it. Chalo, see you
Cheers.
soon and have a great day.
Thanks for being on the show. Bye bye.